Started with some shock and some despair, and it seemed to truly grow. It took on a life of its own, and for the last 10 days or so, we just saw more and more people coming out. And I would bet that there are a number of people who never heard of Nipsey Hussle before this happened and are big fans of his now.
I bet you're right. Yeah.
It's just one of those things. This is a story that's taken on a life of its own, and as a result, people want to be part of the story, and there they are. This is the kind of the center of all the attention right here as this procession very slowly goes through this huge crowd that has been waiting for several hours, and most of them showing up right here. But we also have to mention that the entire route, which is 25 miles long, has been lined with people. Granted, this is the densest portion of that.
Right, and even Nipsey Hussle probably has to be marveling at the show of support and love that is coming out today. You know, despite his past, he spoke out against gun violence. This has been a very peaceful day, thankfully, and he had plans to meet with the LAPD to talk about preventing gun violence. So he was very much aware of the problems of gun violence in South LA and other parts of Los Angeles, and he was also a very critical part of something called Destination Crenshaw. It was a community project designed to promote LA cultural history in South LA. So very big part of that community, and now they are showing their love and support back.
It is a pretty remarkable thing to see. So, and luckily, it has been largely peaceful, and we're very excited to say that. Granted, you did see that police car that is sitting near Rob Hayes. It has been tagged. There are a ton of people sitting on it, but there was no violence in relation to it. And what they tagged on there was basically, I forget what it was exactly, but it said something to the effect of Nipsey's in heaven or Nipsey's in peace now or something like that.
Exactly.
So it wasn't negative by any means.
We're going to check back with Veronica Miracle, because she is at the Destination Point Angelus Funeral Home, about 2 miles away, but a long time away still. Veronica?
Yeah, that's right. And people have been here for hours. We got here at about 1 o'clock, and there were people already, you know, setting up chairs, trying to get their spots. Of course, this crowd has grown dramatically in size. We spoke to some people earlier who actually were trying to get to the Marathon clothing store, but were not able to find parking, and there was just no room, so they've come here. We're also hearing that that crowd may be coming toward us this way, so police are definitely anticipating this crowd to get much bigger over the next hour or so, and they have since beefed up. We've seen about double the amount of officers than they initially sent out. And of course, as I told you earlier, what you're not seeing is all of the people lined up along Crenshaw, and there are dozens and dozens of people. I would say 100 just across the street from where I'm standing. So certainly a very big crowd here, but again, very calm, very respectful. Everybody here is just mourners. They just want to pay their respects, see the hearse as it comes into the funeral home, and say goodbye. So at this point, looking very good over here at the final destination of this procession. Back to you guys.
Good points, Veronica. Thank you for that information. And it does make sense that as this procession moves through this very dense crowd, a lot of folks could make their way to where Veronica is, because they know that is the final destination, which also means it's the final chance to see the hearse and take part in this very long ceremony. Maybe even some folks who are here might follow along behind the hearse. I mean, it's yet to be seen. It will be interesting to get an idea on what the crowd does once the hearse moves on through, because this has been kind of the central focal point of this story for the last week and a half. A lot of people have been gathering at that parking lot and staying at that parking lot. It'll be interesting to see what this crowd does after this hearse moves through.
It has been a very long day, and I think about the family, the mother, the sister, the brothers, and of course his partner, and the long time that they've been sitting in those vehicles. It's probably a pretty tough day for them, but also to see this outpouring of love, maybe that's some comforting. There you see the sister. I believe that is the sister still
behind it.
Yeah, outside
through the
of the
sunroof.
Yeah, I believe. I can get a closer look. I believe that's her. She spoke earlier at the ceremony of life today.
Well, this is a great place for her to show herself and greet the crowd. And again, look at all those outstretched arms.
Wow.
In the bottom half of your screen as everybody is kind of desperately trying to get that shot as it goes on by. A lot of cell phones
I can imagine social media, it must be exploding with all these photos.
This has to be one of the bigger trending stories going on in the world right now, and it's happening right here in Los Angeles in Crenshaw. So this procession, it is now 6:23, and we've basically seen them move, Ellen, maybe 50 yards, maybe 100 yards at best, so it's going extremely slowly. And we had fully anticipated for them to be at their final destination a long time ago.
And hopefully they can do it before nightfall, because it would get a little more complicated if it takes as long as it takes for the sun to go down. It could be a little complicated.
Right. And Rob Hayes, he has been there all afternoon. We're going to join him once again to get a little bit of his perspective. He is right near there. Rob?
Yeah, David, we're here at Crenshaw and Slauson. Again, the procession moving slowly by. I see a lot of arms up with cameras. I don't know if that means that Nipsey Hussle's hearse is getting closer, but it looks like there is a large train of vans back here. So it is, things are moving very slowly. The good news is things are moving very peacefully as well for the most part. There's been very little trouble. There's a tagged police car, some people who are up on street lights and on top of other fixtures as well. But for the most part, things have been going very well. There are kids here with their families. Just a lot of people here who want to experience Nipsey Hussle's last trip past his clothing store. The clothing store is kind of hidden from our camera right now because of the crowd of people, but it's the Marathon. That's the clothing store that he opened here. He opened it in his community to support his community, something a lot of the folks there have not forgotten and what they want to honor today. But for the most part, things are very well under control here. There were some tense moments earlier with a little panic, but they were short-lived, and things are looking pretty good here.
Yeah, Robin, it looks like the people are moving in the direction that the car is going. So maybe, David, you're right. They perhaps are headed toward the funeral home. We hear some chanting down there. Again, those outstretched arms, everyone trying to get a photo.
You know, what's interesting is to go ahead, Rob. Okay, we don't
Did we
have
lose Rob?
All right, you go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, yeah, we've got a bit of a delay here, and it makes it a little awkward when there's a little back and forth between us. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, you'll see a lot of the cameras out. Initially, when the procession first came by, you saw all the cameras go up, all the hands go up, and then they realized this is going to be a very long procession, a long process, because things are moving so slowly because the lanes here have been compressed by all these people who have packed that one open lane on Slauson. LAPD is here trying to keep them back, but there are a lot of folks here that are eager to get close to the funeral procession.
You know, it is interesting to see. I wonder how his clothing company is doing, Marathon Clothing, just sampling around on their website. They still have a lot of items for sale. They're pricey too.
You wonder. I don't know if the price has gone up. It makes you wonder. You know, if the demand has gone up.
I'm looking at a T-shirt, a short-sleeve T-shirt that costs $100.
Yeah, I would imagine that's got to be a.
Yeah, that might be a I don't know. I don't know. But it does bring a lot of attention to his clothing store, and again, more importantly, a lot of attention to an artist who believed in what he was doing, and a lot of people believed in him as well. They loved his music, but perhaps more importantly, they loved who he was as a man.
Right.
And that's why we see this tremendous outpouring. And of course, we have seen other entertainers and singers die prematurely. We've never seen anything like this as an after effect.
And they've made an interesting point that Michael Jackson's funeral was in Staples Center, but you know, Michael Jackson, King of Pop, and all the years that he was in it. And this Staples Center ceremony was full to capacity, and he just came out with his first big album in 2018. So
he was exploding onto the scene, and he was brand spanking new, and people were loving him, and he had a very bright future ahead of him.
Certainly did.
And the test will be what this does for his legacy going forward. You know, they often say when a great artist dies prematurely, they live forever, as opposed to getting of an older age where people move on, and you never move on. Elvis Presley is a perfect example, and Marilyn Monroe, two artists, an actor, singer that died prematurely, shockingly so. But their reputations are amongst the biggest in the history of Hollywood.
Exactly. Nipsey Hussle, only 33 years old. That's so young, and leaves behind some children.
And Tupac, he is a huge, he's legendary within the music industry to this day.
And it'll be interesting to see what his business partners do with the store, and if that will continue. And perhaps this is going to inspire other people to also give back to their community, and other artists to do the same. When they see this outpouring of love, perhaps they too will do the same.
Okay, so that is a great shot from Air 7 as this giant crowd sits there waiting for the procession to go on through. We've taken this all the way to 6:29 right now. For the better part of a half an hour, we really haven't seen that procession move hardly at all. And keep in mind, they still have to go another 2 miles or so to get to where Veronica is at the Angelus Funeral Home.
And you will be able to watch this on abc7.com, streaming live, and also the ABC7 Los Angeles app. So when we leave you here at 6:30, just keep in mind you can switch over to abc7.com or the app.
Yeah, we're going to pop it over to digitally cover this, and we'll be back then at 7 o'clock on KDOC with live coverage of this procession as well. Of course, we're going to break away on ABC7 for World News Tonight with David Muir, but we are staying on top of this. If this is a story that you find fascinating,